Hey everybody, this is Jackie McGuire, practice lead and principal analyst for security at theCUBE Research. I'm here to talk to you a little bit more about my Art of Security Summit. It's going to be April 24th at 10 a.m. Pacific, and it's intended to be a little bit of a precursor to RSA. So rather than wandering around and hope you have the conversations that'll help you get your exceeds on your next performance review, we're going to try to take you through a few strategic initiatives, how to explain risk in a more effective way, and the vendors that can help you do that. So this all kind of originated with a concept that I learned in finance, which is the art of risk management. And this concept says that there are three essential ways to deal with risk. The first way is to avoid it. Anything that you couldn't avoid, you can then try to reduce the impact of. And anything that you couldn't reduce the impact of, you can try to transfer either to a vendor, a partner, or by insuring against it. And I think that this is a much more common language that we can start to talk about security in, because a lot of good security leaders I meet don't have trouble getting approval or buy-in for the right tools and technology. It's more that they can't communicate them in a way that directly ties them to business risk and, let's be honest, revenue. So here are what avoiding, reducing, and transferring risk look like. So avoiding risk starts with strong training programs. Everybody in an enterprise touches data, so everybody in an enterprise should understand the different types of data, how it can be stored, where it can be stored. Beyond that, effective security policies. So I have met a lot of large companies who don't have policies regarding logging, regarding sensitive data, regarding access controls when someone is terminated. There are a lot of things that if you don't put them into a policy, it's really hard to do the right thing. Next would be good security technologies, predominantly the identity ones. So identity and access management, privileged access management, zero trust identity and network access, at least privileged access. These are all about preventing things from getting in before they do. And then proactive posture management, so making sure that you maintain full visibility of all of the different attack surfaces you have and understanding of the vulnerabilities that might be within those surfaces. So once you've avoided the things that you can, you're going to have to try to reduce the risk that remains. And one of the great ways to do this is by using partners. Managed detection and response is a great way. Continuous security monitoring. If you can do this internally, that's great. If you are capable of 24/7 monitoring your security function, then you can do that internally. I would be remiss if I didn't mention cyber resilience, because my colleague Christoph would be very upset. And then leveraging managed services and security services providers. And this is really important because I think what research we did last year showed is that companies who are smaller are more likely to think they should manage their own security, which is a bit counterintuitive because the amount of resources it takes to manage security at any scale really necessitates a partner until you're very, very large. And I think some of the reasons that people don't choose managed service providers are they're not sure how to hold them accountable. They don't know how to pick one. They don't know who the right one for them is. But I do believe that a lot of companies would be better off using managed services and managed service providers. Last but not least, once you've reduced the risk that you can, you need to transfer anything that you have remaining. Cyber risk insurance is the first one that comes to mind. Although these policies are not cheap and they're getting more difficult to qualify for without a service provider if you're on the smaller side, because you do have to attest to having some security controls in place to be underwritten at the right policy level. Vendor management and SLAs are often overlooked. You can only respond to an incident as fast as the vendors who are also responsible for responding to that incident, or where the incident originated, where those vendors are capable of responding. So when you write SLAs, be sure you are really tuning them into what you're going to need to respond to a critical incident. Comprehensive service provider policies is another place. If you're going to use a managed services provider, a managed security services provider, you want to have policies in place for how to engage them, to clear distinction of responsibilities, liability, things like that. And then contractual protections. So you want to make sure that all of the different contracts you're signing with vendors, with partners, with customers clearly lay out who is responsible for what in terms of security and who is responsible for what in terms of liability should something go wrong with security. This is why we're doing this, though, is that art is not really just a concept. It's actually a process that you can take different things through. So whether it be your hot new AI project, rolling out zero trust, network access, whatever it is that you're trying to walk through as a company, there are different ways to talk about security issues. So one of the common things I tell people is don't talk about operational risk, talk about revenue risk. Is if you're not operational, you're not generating revenue. And while saying, hey, there's operational risk can be compelling to people who are also in security, saying, hey, if we had, had a ransomware attack over the weekend and we were non-operational, this is the cost of revenue. This is how much revenue we would have lost. That is a lot more impactful. Brand risk is another big one. We want to protect the brand, and there are plenty of examples of companies that had significant cyber breaches and irrevocable brand damage. Privacy risk. This one I'd like to tie back to employees, especially executives, because privacy does not just have to do with customer data. A lot of times they're going after data of employees and employees with high level access. So it's not just customer privacy, but also executive privacy. Third party risk. So the best way to grow is with partners and alliances, but it also presents a lot of risk. You have to have vendors for many different things. They present their own risk. And then legal risk. So you could call this GRC. You could say, oh, we have compliance risk or, governance risk. That's not really a great place to get buy-in. But if you say we have legal risk and that we may run afoul of the law or people may take legal or regulatory action against us, again, that's a lot more persuasive. And what you really want to do is take anything all the way through this process and say, okay, in this project, here's the risk we can avoid just by not doing parts of it, by securing pieces of it before we start. Here's what we can reduce of what's left. Here's what we can transfer. And then that red triangle at the bottom, that's accepted risk. And so there's a big difference between saying, yeah, I don't really think this is a good idea, and saying, I want to document that this is the way we've mitigated the risk we can, but we are accepting these risks. And having to actually document accepting risks is generally more persuasive than just, I told you so. So I'd love to talk more about all of these concepts. We're going to be bringing in vendors, CISOs, thought leaders, all to talk about different parts in this process, how they think about it, how the people who service MSPs and MSSPs think about protecting companies who take on risk as a business. Really great thought leadership here. And also hopefully a lot of tips and tricks for how the most successful security leaders get things done. Again, join us April 24th at 10 a.m. Pacific. It's a virtual event. Check the comments and we'll link to the sign up page that'll send you a reminder. Look forward to seeing you and then can't wait to follow up the next week at RSA. Thanks, everybody.